May 1945. Occupied Bavaria. The heavy artillery across Europe had finally fallen silent, but inside the deep shadows of the United States Third Army, a completely different kind of war was just beginning. Into the dimly lit office of the American military governor in Munich, a young German woman appears out of the ruins. She is visibly pregnant. Standing directly in front of the stone-faced officers of the Counterintelligence Corps, the CIC, she delivers a statement that cuts through the room like a bullet. She calmly claims that the father of her unborn child is none other than the commander of the Third Army himself, the legendary General George S. Patton. During this exact period, Patton was already walking a razor-thin edge. He was under immense pressure from Washington due to his unfiltered, aggressive statements about the post-war order. A scandal of this magnitude was not a minor issue. It was a concrete trigger for a public court-martial, a weapon that could permanently erase the entire combat legacy of America's greatest tactical commander. The staff officers in that room held their breath, expecting Patton to instantly order her arrest. But what happened behind the locked oak doors forced the high command to launch a black-budget secret operation, a case so sensitive that its files were buried under the highest classification level for over 80 years. Did the iron-willed general actually commit a fatal personal mistake? Or was this a calculated move by an underground enemy who chose to destroy him with a lie? Write in the comments right now. Do you believe the United States Army was truly prepared for the invisible, venomous sabotage of the defeated Reich's underground networks? Let us begin unraveling the dark truth. To understand the terrifying realism of this threat, one must step directly into the chaotic atmosphere of Germany in May 1945. The Third Reich had signed the unconditional surrender, but the machinery of the Nazi state had simply mutated. Thousands of fanatical SS officers, Gestapo executioners, and intelligence agents had burned their identity books, discarded their uniforms, and dissolved seamlessly into the civilian population. General Dwight D. Eisenhower had issued a strict directive, the Non-Fraternization Order. It explicitly forbade any personal association between U.S. personnel and the German population. But reality on the ground was a lawless frontier. Bavaria was starving. People were trading anything they possessed for American C rations, cigarettes, and gasoline. The CIC was logging dozens of reports every day of German women actively targeting American officers to secure food and immunity from arrest. It was against this bleak backdrop that the pregnant woman's appearance at headquarters was calculated to perfection. In the classified investigation logs, she was registered under the alias Helga. Her demeanor was the absolute definition of defiance. She did not enter as a begging refugee. She walked in with an icy composure that bordered on pure arrogance. Helga knew that the left-leaning newspapers in New York and Patton's fierce political rivals within the State Department were desperately praying for any excuse to strip the rogue general of his command. She did not just come with an emotional story. She came with physical evidence designed to withstand a legal cross-examination. With complete composure, she placed two items on the table of the CIC investigator. The first was a solid gold cigarette case, bearing the personal crest and initials of George S. Patton. The second was a carbon copy of a restricted military movement order, a route sheet detailing the general's personal limousine during a classified inspection tour through Stuttgart exactly 9 months prior. This was a massive, direct violation of every security protocol. For the hostile journalists outside the headquarters perimeter, this single piece of paper was a lethal weapon. The underground enemy had bypassed the American tanks and struck Patton directly in his most vulnerable asset, his pristine martial honor. If Patton used his military authority to throw a pregnant woman into prison without a trial, the press would paint him as a brutal dictator. If he remained silent, the media would print the accusation as an undeniable truth. The trap was sprung, and the jaws were closing fast. The moment the intelligence report reached Patton's inner sanctum, the entire building seemed to lose its oxygen. The veteran staff officers, men who had survived the frozen hell of the Ardennes, braced themselves for a volcanic explosion. They knew the general's reputation for roaring at subordinates until the windows rattled. But on this day, the explosion never came. Instead, Patton demonstrated his terrifying, cold fury. It was a quiet anger that was infinitely more dangerous than his loud outbursts. The only sound in the massive room was the sharp creaking of his premium leather riding boots and the tight stretching of his leather gloves as he slowly clenched and unclenched his fists. He stood by the massive window, staring out at the ruined cityscape, his back turned to his intelligence chiefs. Patton was an expert strategist. He realized instantly that a single emotional move would mean total checkmate. If he allowed his temper to dictate his actions, if he ordered his military police to treat this civilian woman like an enemy combatant, he would validate every single criticism ever written about him in Washington. He was being hunted by an invisible enemy that wanted him to react with violence. The general slowly turned around to face the anxious CIC officers. His face was devoid of color, his eyes resembling two pieces of frozen gray stone. He did not ask for details. When he spoke, his voice was a low, vibrating whisper that cut through the room like a razor blade. He said, "You will place this woman under total protective custody. There will be no coercion and no intimidation. You will provide her with medical rations and a dedicated military doctor. But hear me clearly. From this exact second, she is completely isolated from the outside world. She is not to see a single human face without my written signature. You have exactly 48 hours to find out who wrote this script, or I will personally replace every officer in this section." Let us pause the narrative right here and examine this critical moment. Patton was playing for time, isolating the accuser to prevent the story from leaking to the eager journalists outside before his investigators could act. If you were an independent investigator sitting in that headquarters in 1945, would you have viewed Patton's extreme secrecy as a brilliant defensive counterintelligence maneuver? Or would a small part of your mind suspect that the general was desperately trying to suppress a genuine scandal? Tell me your honest perspective in the comments below right now. The elite operatives of the Counterintelligence Corps moved with absolute precision. They had less than 2 days to unravel the conspiracy. While Helga remained isolated under the cover of a medical evaluation, investigators traced the gold cigarette case. The case was authentic, but records showed it had been stolen 3 weeks earlier during an ambush near Frankfurt. The classified route sheet was even more alarming. It had been copied from inside the American administration itself. The trail led to a German civilian clerk working as a translator. Within 36 hours, the CIC raided a hidden bunker outside Munich. Behind false walls, they captured a former SS Hauptsturmführer, the legitimate husband of Helga. The truth was devastating. Helga was pregnant, but by her fugitive SS husband. Together, the underground cell had used stolen items to manufacture a scandal designed to remove Patton from Bavaria. His aggressive denazification policies had made him a target. This was not a personal attack. It was a calculated intelligence operation. When the confession report reached Patton's desk, he entered Helga's room alone and placed the signed statements in front of her. Her composure collapsed. Through tears, she admitted she had participated under threats against her family. Patton's verdict was swift. The SS organizer and the inside spy were court-martialed and executed. Helga was spared. Instead, she was secretly deported to the French occupation zone and cut off from American support. The threat was neutralized. The network was destroyed. And the story ended there. This incident vanished from the official histories of 1945. By direct order of Eisenhower, the investigation file was sealed under maximum classification. The reason was simple. The United States was trying to prove that its occupation forces maintained complete control. Revealing that a Nazi underground network had stolen Patton's personal property and launched a sophisticated blackmail operation could have caused enormous political damage. Washington also feared Soviet propaganda would use the scandal against America. The case hardened Patton's outlook. Shortly afterward, he wrote in his diary, "We have liberated these people from a tyrant, but make no mistake. They still look at us through the cold iron crosshairs of a sniper rifle." Patton realized that the war behind the front lines was far from over. Today, more than 80 years later, historians remain divided. Supporters argue Patton acted with discipline, trusted intelligence procedures, dismantled an espionage network, and protected the honor of the army. Critics argue the military covered up serious security failures and buried the truth to protect its reputation. So what do you think? Was Patton a brilliant commander who handled a dangerous provocation perfectly? Or did the military cross an ethical line by hiding the conspiracy? Leave your thoughts below and subscribe for more investigations into the hidden secrets of history.